Okay, well, just a quick update on how the Toyota's coming back together here. You can see I've got my dual road timing chain cover and everything installed, and I got the manifold back on. Got everything pre-oiled under the valve cover there, and I gotta finish putting the gaskets in there. Everything's looking real good. I'm in the process of putting the header on, and I wanted to show you kind of how I do it. What I do is I just slip it in, and then I individually thread the studs in after the header is lined up. And that makes it much easier than if you have the studs in and then you try to put the header on, which is darn near impossible. So I put the header up first, and then I just thread the studs in one by one. And you can see I'm over here, I'm coating them with nickel anti-seize. These are the little studs. These are actually titanium studs, M10 titanium studs that I had custom made for me. I think I might actually still have a few of these sets for sale on eBay. You can find me on eBay under Ray 4545. I sell tools and different little things from the garage. If all goes well, I'll be firing this baby up probably tomorrow afternoon, and I'll post a video about that. So anyways, it's just wanted to mention the thing about the studs and the gasket. Be careful of that, and kind of give an update. You can see how things are looking. So I'm real happy with kind of how the motor is coming back together, and I'll be glad to have my my pickup truck back on the road. Okay, here it is, first start. Everything's looking good. Air, fuel pressure. I'm breaking in the cam at 2,000 RPMs, 2,500 RPMs. So far, so good. I'm using a little chopstick routine over here to keep the RPMs up while I break in the cam. So I got to break in the cam lobes, burnish them in for 30 minutes at 2,500 RPMs. So everything's looking good here. Electrical system's going. The oil temperature's coming up. We got oil pressure, and then the water temperature should start coming up here pretty soon. So we got about 29 minutes to go. I'll be keeping an eye for oil leaks and things, but everything should be pretty good, I think. Valve train sounds good. I haven't set the timing yet. I just put the trigger in the middle of the range and checked the cap when it was at top dead center, but it fired right up. I pre-pressurized the fuel system by jumpering the diagnostic port over there between FP and B+. Got the fuel pressure up to 39 PSI before I cranked it over. But she's back in business, so real happy about that. Alright, I'm going to let it run for about 25-30 minutes here. If anything interesting happens, I'll check back in. Okay, I got 19 minutes in, and I think there's a coolant leak right here. There's some coolant dripping down there. I hope to heck it's not my Champion radiator. I think it's this silicone hose is not getting a good seal right there. So I adjusted the clamp a little bit. I may put some gasket cinch or RTV in there, although previously it had sealed. I'm going to put this little towel in there and see if it gets wet up here or if it's leaking down there. And then I have to purge the air out of the system here using one of these little guys off of Amazon. These things are really handy if you've never seen them. it's a little bit confusing how they work at first, but basically you put on the fitting and then it allows you to have the air bubble up out of the system, but not have water overflow or coolant, you know, overflow everywhere. But so far so good. Shut it down at 18, 19 minutes because the oil temperature had gotten up to 200, which is a little higher than I want to see it. And I was trying to figure out what's going on with the coolant leak. So I'm going to get back on it here in a second. But so far so good. So I'm going to set this little guy up and see if I can get some of the air out of the system. So. Okay, well, oil temperature's at 192 there. Everything looks pretty good. I'm still breaking in the cam. I got about another 5 or 10 minutes to go here. Trying to get the air purged out. I put a little piece of paper in under here so I can catch the water. You can see there's just a tiny little leak right there. So I'm going to have to do something about that. But at least it's not my beloved champion Radiator. So I think the water was coming through here and getting down. So I've got this in here just to kind of try to keep it from getting down there. And so I can see how much of a leak we've got here. But otherwise, everything looks good. I've got the throttle set here with my chopstick and my little popsicle sticks. And that allows me to add another stick and change the RPMs. So you can see right here, I can just kind of do this. Takes up to 27.5 roughly, so I think I've got a little exhaust leak under here. Kind of hard to say without checking later, but everything looks pretty good overall. Usually takes some time for things to kind of set in, I guess. Yeah, we got a little leak going right there. So, at least it's not the radiator down there. See a little bit of maybe down there. So I gotta double check it, but I'm reasonably sure it's coming from up here. All right, so far so good. Okay, well, the motor's all back together and running. So the only thing on the silicone hose right here, I could not get it to seal. Did some research online and people were talking about how the silicone hoses do not seal well. I was able to get it to seal back there, and then down here and on the lower hose seems to be okay, but for some reason right here I was having a heck of a time. I tried everything I could with clamps and, you know, I even did a test over here with aviation cement on a spare part and the silicone hose with a clamp overnight, and I came out this morning, took the clamp off, and it pulled right off. So I'm just going to switch back to the rubber hoses. I have a few here. These aren't OEM hoses. I don't believe these are just ones that came from Trail Gear, I think, or something. But they'll be okay for now. But I'm going to get some Toyota factory rubber hoses, put them on, and I think I'll run those. But you can see everything's back in order here. Motor's running good, running well, and no leaks. Oh well, there is one leak on the collector I showed down there with the copper thing. I've got to reorient the bands so they seal a little better. So I have a slight exhaust leak down there. I had a slight leak on this little area here. I had to switch to a different style gasket and put some copper RTV. That sealed it up. Overall, everything's good. I checked the burn time and the peak voltage levels last night on all the spark plugs, and everything's good between 10 and 13 kilovolts. And the burn time is, I'm not sure how it reads. I think it's milliseconds, so 2 milliseconds or something like that. So that's all real encouraging. Let's see, what else? I think that about covers it. Oh, there's still a little vibration in the motor, more than I wanted. So I think what had happened here in this case is the previous owners who rebuilt the motor, I'm guessing that whatever shop they used or whatever balanced the rotating assembly, if they even bothered to do that, balanced it with the flywheel as part of the rotating mass, which is a big no-no. Normally, you know, you want to balance everything irrespective of the flywheel, and then have the flywheel balanced independently, and then put it all together and check the balance. At least that's how I would do it. And then that way, if you change the flywheel down the road, it doesn't throw off the whole assembly. And I'm wondering if maybe they had balanced the flywheel on there, because there's a little bit more vibration at lower RPMs than I think is normal. I'm gonna try to make a counterweight and bolt it to the front damper, since I don't have a double pulley setup. I don't know if it's kind of hard to see down in there, but there's some bolts that allow for you to bolt on the pulley for like the air conditioner and what have you. And so I'm going to use those bolt holes and then just make a little counterweight and move that around, see if I can offset some of the vibration and smooth things out. But even as it stands in its current state, motor's running really nice. So I had also originally kind of disabled the EGR valve as a test, but I put it back on because it sure seems like the ECU likes to have that in the mix. And if I'm not mistaken, it lowered the overall operating temperature of the motor based on the oil temperature. So still fine-tuning some things, but motor's back together. Everything seems to be good. I'm going to drive it in for about 500 or 1,000 miles and then change the oil and filter. And then I'll probably run a compression check. But real pleased with kind of where things are at right now. Truck seems to run real well on the freeway. And the head gasket, obviously, don't have any problems that I can tell. I put in, one thing I want to mention about this, I think part of the problem also might be this really slippery, I'm running this coolant here, a 50-50 mix of this stuff, along with, and you can see this is the kind of the graveyard over here of the truck. But I'm running this coolant here with a 50-50 mix of distilled water, and just, you know, water from the grocery store. And then this is the oil that I'm running here, Motul. I'm a big fan of Motul oil. And this is the one I settled on after reading all the specs. And then I've got the Comp Cams break-in additive, as well as a little bit of the Lucas break-in additive that I tossed up right directly where the cam oil kind of reservoirs were. So I think that probably helped break in the motor pretty well. So we'll see. I'm gonna probably, even though this is a Permatorque head gasket from Felt Pro, where they say it doesn't require retorquing, I'm probably going to drive about 500 to 1,000 miles and then pull the valve cover off. I want to check to make sure the cam lobes look okay, and then you know, probably readjust the valve lash, or at least check it, and also verify the torque on all the head bolts. So I think that'll be probably the next step. So okay, well, for everyone who's been following along on the channel, really appreciate it. Toyota pickups back in action, and then the next step will be working on the interior. I got to put the heater core in and all the gauges and the radio and all that stuff. So but I probably won't be doing that right away, but when I get to doing some of that stuff, I'll toss a few videos up for anyone who's interested. So okay, hope you've enjoyed the video here, and thanks for watching. Feel free to use the comment section below if you have any questions.